Hey guys, what is going on? My name is Tom with Amped Airsoft. If you guys are a regular subscriber, we're back for another FCU programming video. This time, what we're going over is the Redline FCU for their electrical unit. So not their mechanical unit that a lot of people are more familiar with, that being the N7 Milsim. This is the N7 G2 electric unit. We're going to be going over this unit and a few other units in a different video series, going over HPA engines themselves, but for this series, what we're going to go over is the controls and how to navigate programming this particular FCU. Now, if you've watched previous videos, it's pretty much me explaining how to navigate and doing all of that off the top of my head because a lot of the times they're pretty straightforward and I've worked a lot with them. This is a unit that we don't really do a lot of installs with because a lot of people, when they hear Redline, they really go for the N7 Milsim mechanical unit because it's such a great unit. This is actually kind of, I feel like, a slept-on unit. I don't want to get too much into this unit. I do think it's a very good unit. I just want to say that. But we do not do a ton of installs on it because I think people generally go for a jack or other single solenoid units. Because this is not as well known. But again, it's actually a fantastic unit. The other thing that is going to be a little bit different on this video is I'm going to have the paperwork of how to install, or not install, but how to adjust the FCU next to me, because this is a little bit, it's not technical, but it is a little bit not intuitive like a lot of the other FCUs are. So if you look at some of our older videos on the Polar Star FCU, it has a readout and numbers and everything and a screen that you can see what's going on as you're adjusting. In this one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna read off of the paperwork that Redline has on their website, and we're gonna pin it to the top comment down below so that you guys have access to this paperwork. And something that I have noticed now that I've taken some time to really work with this unit for this video, once you figure out how to do the tuning, it's actually very easy to tune. You have to do it a few times, and then once you get the muscle memory down and like the little signals that it gives you as we're doing this, you really do kind of understand like, oh, this is actually kind of convenient. Diving right into it, guys, we're gonna start navigating this FCU. So this FCU, like I said, is not very, there's no information on this FCU. There are signals that it will give you to indicate what you're doing within the programming mode, and the paperwork is highly recommended to follow the instructions on what they intend for you to do with programming. It's very easy. The paperwork's actually written very well. Like I said earlier, it will take a little bit to get used to the signals that this board is giving you as you program it. So without further ado, let's go into what those signals are. So the main way that you're going to navigate this FCU during programming mode is going to be through trigger pulls like the Wolverine Spartan FCU, if you're familiar with that. But instead of the FCU firing off like the Spartan board does and gives you some signals as the solenoid fires or that the gun fires, this has a LED indicator on it. It is very, very bright. It's a very bright white LED that goes off to indicate different settings and menus and different parts of the menu that you are in. You are going to hold the trigger down while plugging the battery in to enter programming mode. When I plug this in, there will be an LED going off right here to indicate that I'm in programming mode, and that'll either give me 2 LED flashes to say that I've entered programming mode, or it will give me 5 LED flashes to say that I've entered programming mode and it has been reset to the factory default settings. I will say as a side note that this LED is very quick to react, and if you need positive confirmation, it will cycle back through the setting to let you know what menu and what setting you have in that menu. So it'll continuously do that as you reprogram it. Once we're in programming mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this trigger a number of times to enter the desired menu that I want. I'm going to refer to the paperwork right now, and when you guys look at the paperwork and you look at the manual that they give you on how to program, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different menus for you to choose to enter once you enter programming mode. To go to one of those menus, all you're going to do is press the trigger micro switch or pull your trigger if it's installed into your gun, the number of times associated with that menu. So if I wanted to do Nozzle Dwell, I'd pull the trigger once. If I wanted to do selector position, I would pull it 6 times to enter that menu. The unit will give me a long flash to indicate what menu I am currently in. So if I want to do Nozzle Dwell, it will hold a long flash of white light on this LED for just 1 pulse of it. If I want to be in the full auto burst mode to adjust my burst for full auto, it will give me 3 long white LED flashes. So it'll be like LED beep, beep, beep. After you enter that menu, you are then going to have a bunch of quick LED flashes. Those flashes are to be counted, and those flashes will indicate the value of the current setting of that menu. If I want to change that value, I'm going to pull the trigger the number of times needed for the desired value that I want to change it to. So as an example, the Nozzle Dwell has a minimum setting of 10. If I want to increase the Nozzle Dwell to 20, so I want to increase my dwell, I will pull the trigger 20 times, and then I will wait. And then the board will read out to me what it received. I will count the number of LEDs flashing, or the number of times the LED flashes, and that is the new value. It is not saved until you unplug the battery. So if you wanted to go and change to a value in a different setting of the menu, you have to unplug your battery to save the value that you just added, and then you will have to enter programming mode again to change it again. That's the general overview of navigating this unit. So with that, I'm actually gonna go over some common problems you might run into with this FCU and possibly this engine itself. There's not a lot. It's actually a very, very good unit. Anytime we really install the unit itself, there's the normal nozzle alignment stuff that we need to do. It's a pretty straightforward installation. The dwell is generally something we always look at with this unit and Infernos as well. From the factory, the Infernos are set a little bit low. This is set right just below the middle. So for most applications, it's fine, but we do tend to turn it up a little bit higher than the factory default. So just a note on dwell, we do tend to turn up a little bit higher. Its default setting is 20. We generally run it at about 30 when we install them into guns. So just to point that out, that's one of the main things that we've noticed when installing them. One of the other things that we've noticed when working with this is the biggest issue is learning how to program the FCU and be aware of how many times this thing is flashing. That is probably the #1 problem we run into and get questioned on when it comes to programming is people do not take the time to learn how this LED works. When you have taken the time to learn how it works, then you can properly adjust this and know that you're doing accurate adjustments instead of adjustments that could be a false adjustment that you did completely out of ignorance of how fast this light is going to flash at you and you're not ready to start counting it. The good part is that this will repeat the cycle of counts, and so you can sit there and wait and go, okay, I'm ready to watch it, and then it'll start going again, and you'll kind of get that rhythm of timing down, but you do kind of need to get that timing down. That's why I'm harking on it so much, is that is the biggest problem that we see from customers and even internally when programming this unit to adjust it for dwell or whatever thing we're programming it for, is not paying close enough attention to how this LED flashes. Another thing is not unplugging the battery and thinking, oh, we're good, and that it'll just save the setting. Sometimes we forget to do that. That's a common one to forget to do. So definitely make sure you're unplugging the battery. But outside of that, there's not really a lot of issues. Again, this unit itself is actually very impressive with the performance. So what are the modes that we have to program? So we have 6 different modes to program. We have Nozzle Dwell, which is also going to be your main dwell because this is a single solenoid unit that you're programming for. Long story short, basically what we're going to be controlling with the nozzle dwell is two factors. We're going to be controlling the speed at which the nozzle moves back and forth and the amount of air that comes down the barrel at the same time. So if you're trying to get your BBs to feed better out of your magazine, you might want to increase or decrease this nozzle dwell. If you're seeing inconsistent groupings, you may want to increase or decrease this nozzle dwell, and you'll have to find a happy medium between those two factors, feeding and consistency. Generally speaking, most people want to focus on feeding because you don't want to miss rounds, but that really depends on your application and what's going on. And there's some other ways to adjust those factors, but we're not going to get into that. Those don't involve tuning the FCU. We're just focusing on tuning the FCU. If you look right there on the FCU, while I'm plugging this in, you will see 2 white flashes because I'm just going to enter programming mode. And we're going to hold that. We're going to plug that in, and then 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2 flashes, and then I'm going to press the trigger once. So that was a long blink, and now there are going to be some fast blinks. So this is going to be the setting of the nozzle dwell right now. And wait for it to cycle again. Okay, so the setting currently is 10 because I set it to the minimum earlier. So that's basically a little bit of how you can see, like, it's going to keep cycling that information, keep cycling that information. I'm going to change it back to 20. So what I'm going to do, and I can pull the trigger at any time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm going to immediately look at that white LED. Okay, so I'm going to wait, confirm. Okay, so it is 20. Okay, so it's going to keep doing that. I'm going to do that so that it's not blinking on camera, but it's going to keep doing that. So now I have programmed a new setting into this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to unplug the battery to save that setting. With that being said, I'm going to go through what each setting is. I'm not going to illustrate that because the basic premise is exactly what I just showed you. The only other thing of note is that if you do not give this a command once you enter programming mode, within the first 5 seconds, it will automatically put you into the first menu setting, which is the nozzle dwell. Once you are in that menu, if you don't want to adjust your nozzle dwell, you will have to unplug, re-enter programming mode, and then after you've released the trigger, you see the 2 or 5 blinks from the LED, you will then have to enter via trigger pulls what menu you want to be in. 1 shot per trigger pull. It's not going to create a delay or anything. Second setting is going to be 1 shot per 2-second maximum, so you're going to have a 2-second delay. Third setting is going to be 1 shot per second maximum, so you're going to have like a 1-second delay. And then fourth setting is going to be 10 shots per second maximum. So basically what this is going to kind of create is a little bit like a sniper delay in some other setup. So like if I do 1 shot per 2 seconds, so I have to pull the trigger and then in the next 2 seconds, it's going to be dead. That's what you're programming. You're kind of programming a semi-auto sniper delay, if you want to think of it that way. That's how it's called in a lot of other systems. This is calling it actually a very proper way of semi-auto max rate of fire, so that you can't spam the trigger very quickly. I'm not going to go through every single setting and show what exactly it does. Next one is going to be full auto or burst mode. So the first setting is obviously going to just be regular full auto. And then you have 5 other settings: 3-round burst, 5-round burst, 7-round burst, 9-round burst, or 1-round burst, which basically semi-locks the engine. So the last setting of the full auto / burst mode is going to be a semi-lock. So that'll be setting number 6. Fourth menu is going to be full auto rate of fire, which is going to be the overall rate of fire for the engine if you're trying to tune rate of fire like you see in other single solenoid units. It's going to have a minimum setting of 10, a maximum setting of 40, and a default of 18. The next two are going to, or the next one is going to be anti-stiction pulse. So there's not going to be a pulse and a pulse delay like in some other units. There's just going to be a anti-stiction pulse. If you want to know more about anti-stiction, we went over that in a previous video. Check that link below and we'll show you. And the final setting is the selector position. So in a normal setup, you're going to have two different setups. You're going to have normal or reversed. And normal is going to be safe, semi, auto if it's a M4. If it's an AK or other version 3 or a weird gun, you may want to run safe, auto, semi, just because of how the selector switch is on that gun versus how it's set up on the board. But basically, that's how you do the entire thing. So what I'm going to show is if you pull the trigger when cycling through the menus more than the number of menu options that it has, so say you pull the trigger 7 times or more, because there's only 6 settings, you will get an error indication of a long, short, long, short, long, short alert to alert you that you made an incorrect input for the menu. It will stay in programming mode and then you can re-enter which menu you want to go in within 5 seconds. Okay, so now that we've gone over how to program, how the menus work, and all of that, what we're gonna go over next is this compatible with any other units? Yes, actually, it's very compatible with other units, specifically PolarStar units. This trigger board is very, very similar to a PolarStar trigger board, and this FCU port is very similar to the PolarStar trigger board. You can use it with a PolarStar single solenoid unit. You can use it for that, but you do need to mess around with the settings a lot. You can use it with an Inferno, but you will need a different wire harness and basically convert it over to PolarStar wiring if you want to use this with Inferno. You can. It's not really recommended, but you can use it with that. The FCU, if you look, has 4 wires on the harness instead of 5 like a PolarStar harness does. And so it will not receive all the same commands, but it will still work. We recommend not mixing a PolarStar trigger board with a Redline FCU and vice versa. Sometimes they play well together, sometimes they don't, depending on the revision you have, depending on software, a lot of different things. But we recommend if you are going to use it with a different engine, the engine is the only thing you change, and you keep the family of electronics together. So it can work with other single solenoid units. You just plug that solenoid in here and you adjust all your settings to that new single solenoid unit with the menus and everything. Okay guys, I know that was a lot of information and there was a lot to go over, and this seems a little bit daunting, but I can guarantee you once you get your hands on it and you actually start working with the system, it becomes very, very, very intuitive to do. I have used it a few times in a few different guns, and it, like I said, it's very intuitive once you've run through it a few times. I highly recommend with this FCU that you take some time to learn how it operates and the feedback it gives you with the paperwork next to you, and you learn how to program it before you start actually messing around with settings and doing programming, or else you're gonna get very frustrated because you're gonna think you know how to do it, you're gonna feel like you have some understanding, and then your settings are gonna be all off because you didn't take the time to learn how to use this FCU. It is one of the few that I will say that you should have the paperwork next to you for the first few times that you're learning how to program it. Once you've learned how to program it, again, it's very intuitive. You'll learn how the feedback works, you'll learn how the LED system works. It is very intuitive once you get going with it, but you do need to take some time and work with the system. So that's my big point of this FCU. I'm gonna say it a million times in this video. We're gonna pin the link to the programming down below in the top comment, and a few other videos that are gonna help that we've done previously that are gonna help with programming this and understanding the programming settings. If you have further questions or you're still confused, leave a comment down below so we can get back to you in the comments and hopefully help other people out with the same question. But with that, guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope you got some information out of it. Again, please comment down below if you have any further questions. And with that, thank you guys so much. My name is Tom from Amped Airsoft, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thanks. Bye.